Tom Leyden and Butch Stearns with our Patriots insider, Jeff Howe from The Athletic Boston. And that was some game, huh? What's your initial take?
My goodness. You know what was crazy? The amount of things that Tom Brady's accomplished over the course of his career, the amount of times that he's come back from the dead, and especially against the Chiefs. And then the cool thing was it sort of came full circle with him because Joe Montana was in the crowd. And I went up to him afterward and I was like, you know, the amount of things that you've done over the course of your career, now you got to do one in front of Joe Montana. Like this game, the back and forth, the young gun on the other side. And he had no idea that Montana was in the crowd. And I was like, oh, well, I mean, I guess now that you know, like, is that kind of cool? And he was like, yeah, it is.
I was with you while you were asking the question. Yeah. His answer was classic, and I know you'll have it at The Athletic. And I think that brings me to one point. I think what will get lost in this game is that Patrick Mahomes did it too. Patrick Mahomes brought them back and tied this game and sent it into overtime. That's not the number one thing, but this was an unbelievable football game. 4 lead changes in the fourth quarter, and then Brady did it again in overtime. I mean, this was a game worthy, like the NFC Championship was, of a conference championship game.
It exceeded the hype. I mean, this was the game that we sort of hoped that we would see all season long. And on the NFC side, I mean, these were the 4 best teams, and it was a total toss-up because they were all good to great teams. And it lived up to it and exceeded it. And you talk about just, you know, Brady, once again, clutch, 3rd and 10. You know, how many of those conversions did he have in clutch situations? There were 3 of them in that game-winning overtime drive alone. 2 to Edelman, who had a big-time redemption drive in overtime there. And then Gronk with the 15-yarder over Eric Berry, a little redemption for him because Eric Berry really took his lunch in that Week 1 game back in 2017. So Gronk had a good day against the premier safety in the league. I know he's hurt and everything, but, you know, that had to feel good for him.
Yeah.
And all of it, you know, once again, 50-some-odd game-winning drives for Tom Brady, and he makes every single one look just as easy or as subdued as the previous.
We have seen so many accomplishments from this team. It's tough to keep them all in perspective, but I think this team is a little different in my eyes because I don't know that everyone had the utmost confidence that they would be championship contenders. And more so than any other team that we've seen, they really have gotten better throughout the year to the point where they've made themselves contenders. You know, they had 5 weeks after that Pittsburgh Steelers loss to get their act in gear as it relates to playing on the road. What do you think was the big key to playing well on the road and being able to do this here?
Focus. It was totally about focus. I mean, really, I've seen a completely different group in that locker room over the last 3 weeks, including the bye week going into the playoffs. I mean, they've been so dialed in. Last week going into the Chargers game, Friday, I started to think to myself, you know, this group is a little more tuned up than usual, and we saw why on Sunday. This week I started to get that feeling on Thursday, especially with the guys on the defense. And then I started to hear the way Tom Brady was sort of walking around and the confidence that he had in the offensive game plan and the way that they were going to, or he expected them to execute against the Chiefs. And again, all of that stuff came to fruition on the field. Defensively, they played a perfect first half. Offensively, they made some mistakes, but still put up 37 points in a shootout that they needed to win because Mahomes, like you were saying, he was on his game too. I mean, these were 2, you had a 41-year-old quarterback, you had a guy who was basically young enough to be his son on the Chiefs sideline. Both of the guys were fantastic, and again, it sets up for a fun Super Bowl.
Tom, I want to take a shot at that, and I want your comment on this, Jeff, about being on the road and winning in this stadium. I think it's less significant where this game was. Not insignificant, but less significant. I'm going to use 2 words, faith and poise. To your point, they had the ultimate faith they could get it done. But to get it done after you played a perfect first half and led 14-0 against the Chiefs team here, to know you were going to have a bang-bang fourth quarter, how much poise does that take to get? I know we've seen it before, but how much poise does that take when you did go 3-5 on the road this year?
You know what? Not just that. It starts with Brady, obviously, and Edelman and Gronk that we discussed. Chris Hogan has been a ghost.
I was just going to say his name.
Yeah, I mean, this guy was an afterthought for months over the course of the season. This is a guy who's had some great playoff performances, showed some ability to be a fringe number 2 type of receiver in his first couple seasons with the Patriots. And again, he was a ghost. He was basically phased out for a large portion. I mean, Brady didn't look at him. He was the 4th or 5th target on a number of different plays. And then all of a sudden, when Julian Edelman starts fighting it a little bit in the fourth quarter, Brady just starts looking at Hogan in the most key situation of the entire season, a guy that was all but written off for much of the fall, becomes one of the more important players on the entire field. So it's a collective effort, obviously. But a guy like Hogan being able to step up and just dismiss everything that happened leading up to this point and still be able to come through. That one-handed catch was as big as just about any. And again, so there's a lot of guys who that falls under.
Well, this is going to be great. Here we go again. The Super Bowl for the Patriots. Thank you very much. I've got a couple of words for both of you. Get a hat. It's freezing out here.
Got some moss.
And rest up.